Chair, and I recognize the gentlelady from Michigan, Ms. Ms. McClellan.
Wait.
Who am I recognizing now?
Strickland.
Ms. Strickland. Oh, okay. She's recognized for 5 minutes.
Great, thank you very much. What's been interesting about this conversation is that critical race theory has been weaponized as a political tool, and we are mixing up DEI with CRT. Critical race theory simply looks at American racism and how it has shaped public policy over time. And running away from history does not help us have a stronger military. Being afraid of discussing systems does not help us have a stronger military, especially when we have the best and the brightest joining the military, and we're insulting their intelligence by thinking that they can't talk about this, that they're being brainwashed. That is insulting to them and insulting to the military. As I look at this debate and how it's going to play out, Mr. Horsford was right. This is simply a ploy to get rid of DEI and to weaponize it. 40% of the people who serve in the military are people of color. 20% are African American. People who are in the military should feel as though they're getting a fair shot at promotion, at military justice, and that their basic needs are being met. But by trying to weaponize this topic, we are doing ourselves a big disservice. But here's the one suggestion I have for my friends across the aisle. Listen to the lived experience of people who are part of minority groups. Look at the stark difference between one side of this room and the other side of this room. When you are taking time to listen, you make better decisions. When you are taking time to learn from others, you're going to be more effective. If we want a stronger military, we cannot run from CRT, and we must embrace DEI as a central part of how we lead. I yield back, sir.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Michigan, Ms. McClain.
I'll make one comment. I agree with you. We should listen and we should learn. That's why I don't know why we're afraid of doing a report. To listen and to learn. But again, let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story. And with that, I yield my time to Mr. Gates.
Yeah, the gentlelady who spoke on the other side of the aisle said that critical race theory had been politically weaponized. And I could not agree more. It has been politically weaponized by the left against people when you explain as the central premise of critical race theory that people are captive to their immutable traits. And to suggest that it is insulting to the military to not subject this to this. No, what's insulting to the military is to sit people down and tell them that by virtue of their skin color, they are inherently oppressed or an oppressor, and that is inescapable. That is considerably more offensive than an amendment to talk about whether or not this is the right and just thing for the Department of Defense to be engaged in. I would further observe that the way critical race theory is presented is not like an understanding of history. That would still be fully allowed under any of the amendments that are being considered today. It's just that we don't tell people that they are locked in to this future because it's fundamentally un-American. And to my colleagues' questions about whether or not I intend to use this hearing to go after the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives and the critical race theory in the military, the answer to that question is unequivocally yes. We will spend as many hours as it takes to de-wokeify this military, and it's not an effort to dominate the time. Like the criticism that because I've offered these amendments, we're dominating the time of the House Armed Services Committee is so stark when laid in contrast to the time that is dominated in training that we're simply trying to learn about to push ideas and ideologies that are radical and un-American. And so, yeah, we're going to be going after DEI, and we're going to be going after critical race theory, and I think that's what our military deserves. And it's not divisive for us to do that. What was divisive was to use prior National Defense Authorizations Acts to establish these programs. Like in all these hearings where we drag the top brass of the military in and ask them questions, like the easiest response for any of them to us when we point out these bad things that they're doing is to say, look, you all demanded it in National Defense Authorization Acts. You told us we had to have a 5-year plan. So I view this not as a wedge issue, not as divisive, but as remedial. We have to go and remediate the bad things that have happened as a consequence of this embrace of radical gender ideology and radical race ideology. A point my colleague Mr. Waltz always makes in these discussions. Republicans don't obsess about these things because we're so eager to chat about them. these things get brought to us by our constituents and by people who are wearing the uniform. I am struck by one particular case in my district where a majority-minority unit had their leadership come to me and say the most dangerous thing they had to deal with at times in terms of mental health and unit cohesion wasn't the adversary, it was the stand down ordered by Secretary Austin. Because then you had people who, the whole premise of their training was that they had a common experience. They had gone through something together. They were a unified collective force. And then when these people get told, oh, well, you know, your teammate over here is so different and we have to obsess about those differences rather than our commonality, they get frustrated with that. And they bring those materials to us. And one reason a report is so necessary is because even when we had General Milley here before us, and Mr. Waltz asked him questions about some of this pedagogy and training that was going on, he said it doesn't exist. Totally a fiction. We were imagining these things. It was a critical race theory mirage that we had observed. And of course, Mr. Waltz brought the receipts and showed these generals over and over again the materials that our constituents bring to us to fight for them. And that is what we intend to do, and that is what this series of amendments will accomplish. I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes Ms. Escobar of Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that, unfortunately, this is the beginning of a long and painful conversation about issues that should have been settled long ago, and about perspectives that should have mattered long ago. One of my colleagues just talked about listening to folks. I am a civilian. I did not serve in the military. And so I take a lot of time to listen to active duty service members, especially women. And no, women do not, I don't speak for all women in the military, but many of the women I have spoken to over the years do not feel welcome. Many of the women in the military believe, that I've spoken to, do not believe that their perspective matters. And if we do not hear them, if we do not honor them, if we do not govern with them and others in mind, then we should not be complaining that we have a recruitment problem. We should absolutely accept that we will continue to have recruitment problems and that we will have a less diverse military, one that does not adequately reflect the diversity of our nation. It is incredible to me that we are spending time not just on this issue. We just voted on an amendment that rewards service members who refuse to follow orders on taking vaccinations. It really is embarrassing and it's appalling. And I look forward to getting past all of these really embarrassing and appalling amendments so that we can talk about things that really matter. I yield back.